Welcome to Treetop Environmental News. This is the fourth week of January 2014. I'm Carbohydrate, and here are the headlines. The year 2013 tied with 2009 and 2006 for the seventh warmest year since record-keeping began in 1880, continuing a long-term trend of rising global temperatures, NASA scientists said today. With the exception of 1998, the 10 warmest years in the 134-year record have all occurred since 2000, with 2010 and 2005 ranking as the warmest on record. With California facing water shortfalls in the driest year in recorded state history and drinking water supplies at risk in many California communities, Governor Jerry Brown has proclaimed a state of emergency and directed state officials to prepare for severe drought conditions. State water officials say California's rivers and reservoirs are below their record lows. Manual and electronic readings record the snowpack's statewide water content at about 20% of normal average for this time of year. This week, the governor held his State of the Union address while protesters gathered outside the Capitol to punctuate the irony of the governor's politics. Over 100 protesters held signs and banners asking Governor Jerry Brown to ban fracking and scrap his Bay Delta conservation plan to build the peripheral tunnels. Both are direct assaults on the state's fresh water supplies. Activists from Oil Change International and 350.org deployed a 3-story banner across the Capitol with the message, "Governor Brown, climate leaders don't frack. Ban fracking now." This last week, pilot whales have beached themselves on both sides of the world. Nearly 100 in New Zealand, where 20 have died, and another unknown number is South Florida, where 8 have died. The causes remain a mystery, but show a continuation of pilot whale strandings in the past few months. In other oceanic news, 1/4 of all sharks and rays are facing extinction according to the first global analysis of the conservation status of 1,041 shark, ray, and related species conducted by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. The dolphin hunt continues in Taiji, Japan, where tens of thousands of dolphins have been murdered in the annual slaughter. U.S. and British ambassadors to Japan have criticized the slaughter but have not boycotted the nation. This week, a very rare blind albino dolphin was seen struggling to maintain its lifelong connection with its mother, who was seen desperately to stay with her child. She later appeared to commit suicide by drowning herself once her child was violently extracted from the pod of dolphins that have been captured. Most of that pod was killed. In a large Sparks, Nevada lake, an estimated 100,000 trout, bass, and catfish have died over the past month, and state wildlife officials are trying to figure out why. The stocked fishery had flourished since the man-made lake was created nearly 15 years ago. The sudden die-off is apparently the result of a dramatic, unexplained drop in dissolved oxygen levels, Nevada Department of Wildlife spokesman Chris Healy said Wednesday. Fish biologists confirmed low oxygen levels caused the deaths of an estimated 3,000 fish in one corner of the lake in mid-December. But Healy said that they thought at the time that the event was localized and of limited impact. Since then, they've been unable to detect any live fish in the 77-acre lake. The 100,000 dead fish figure is something that is probably a pretty conservative guess, said Healy, who estimates they've stocked close to 1 million adult fish in the lake since they started in 1998. Radioactive wastewater from fracking is found in a Pennsylvania stream. New testing of treated wastewater from fracking shows that it contains high levels of radioactive radium, along with chloride and bromide. There's no national set of standards that guides this treatment process. The EPA notes that the Clean Water Act's guidelines were developed before fracking even existed, and that many of the processing plants are not properly equipped to treat this type of wastewater, and scientists have conducted relatively little assessment of the wastewater to ensure it's safe after being treated. The concentrations of radium were roughly 200 times higher than background levels. In addition, amounts of chloride and bromide in the water were 2 to 10 times greater than normal. According to one of the scientists involved in the testing, even if today you completely stop disposal of the wastewater, there's enough contamination built up that you'd still end up with a place that the U.S. would consider a radioactive waste site. In Sherburn-on-Elmet, England, an estimated 15,000 tons of waste tires are on fire at a recycling plant in a blaze that can be seen from space. Fire crews have been battling the fire for days, and the entire region is being told not to breathe the smoke. And finally, in Missoula, Montana, a 71-year-old woman was arrested and charged with disorderly conduct for peacefully protesting as the infamous megaload built by General Electric was en route to the tar sands fields of Alberta, Canada. Carol Marsh was charged with the misdemeanor when she sat down in the middle of the road in front of the megaload and refused to move. At about 12:40 a.m., Montana Highway Patrol officers accompanied the rig, called city police, and said a protester was sitting in the street in front of the trucks. Welsh said city officers asked Marsh to move, and she said that was not her intent. Marsh represents the 7th time this particular megaload has been blockaded since it left the port of Umatilla, Oregon, over 2 months ago. Nearly 20 people have so far been arrested. That's this week's headlines. Details of these stories and more can be found on our Facebook and YouTube pages, Treetop Environmental News. Brought to you by the Trinidad Tree Sitters, also on Facebook. This tree and all of us, the inhabitants of this tree, along with this entire forest, are under the threat of clear-cutting this coming spring by Green Diamond Resource Company, under the command of Neil Ewald, creating huge wealth for the Simpson and Reed family, comfortably in their homes in Washington State. Join us and thousands around the world this coming Valentine's Day for an international prayer for this forest, which can be found on Facebook at Prayer for California Rainforest. Thank you, and have a wonderful week.